And for this particular event, as I've said, we've got a range of speakers lined up looking at finance to begin with, what is happening in the world of clean tech finance. And then also some of the opportunities, how can you access some of that finance related to that. I don't think I said at the outset, my name is Martin Garrett. For those that don't know me, I'm Chief Exec at Cambridge Clean Tech, but we have a number of the team with us present here today that can help with any queries that you might have. Before we go straight into our first speaker, I just wanted to mention a couple of points of housekeeping. If you could remain muted, please, that would be helpful. If you are desperate and urging to make a comment, then please use the chat box in the middle of your console, and we'll try and pick that up in the Q&A. And as Vaughan has already mentioned, we will be recording the event as well. Okay, so thank you all for that. Thank you for your time for the introduction. So without further ado, I'm delighted to introduce you to Helen Lynn, who's one of our investors in resident at Cambridge Clean Tech, and she's also a principal at Vaughan Ventures. And Helen's going to talk to us about the current clean tech trends and what investors really want to hear from if you're an SME. Helen, over to you.
Great, thank you so much for the introduction. As he mentioned, I am with a venture capital fund. I am based in London. The fund is headquartered in Silicon Valley, and we focus on clean tech and climate tech, so early stage technologies to combat climate change and other environmental issues related to climate change, including biodiversity issues, ocean health issues, et cetera. So anything that basically has a knock-on negative footprint to the planet. So if I go ahead and just start some slides here. Can everybody see that okay?
Yeah.
Great. All right, so here on the cover page, I just like to start with this image. It's actually from NASA, and you can find it on YouTube at this link down here if you're interested. But basically what NASA did is they did this really amazing imaging exercise with a time-lapse series of a year in the life of the Earth's carbon dioxide. And basically, this is just a still image, of course, and what you can see is the red here is the carbon dioxide that is basically exhaled by the planet in the winter months when all of the biomass, trees and the like kind of die off seasonally, but then also the footprint from industry and humanity and civilization ramps up from, home heating and other, emissions related activities like that. And what you would see if you were to watch the entire video is that then as spring comes on and, biomass starts to grow and flourish and, the greenery just starts to take over the planet and start to absorb carbon dioxide naturally, virtually all of this red that you see here disappears. And it's really quite remarkable just to see that, nature, when left to its own devices, really can handle a lot, right, of what is emitted into the atmosphere. And it's just a really stark reminder, I find, that we just need to get on nature's side, right? And not only abate emissions, but to aid and assist in this drawdown that it does naturally. And so I just like to open with this and do encourage everybody to go check out this this short video, because it really shows how the planet just breathes in and out, from on a yearly basis. So trends. I tend to use the term climate tech more, clean tech, climate tech. They're relatively interchangeable. I find climate tech a little bit broader and includes a few more things, and so you'll see I use that term more here. Anyway, so I think in the past year, it's been a very frothy market for climate tech. It's become very mainstream, not just in this past year, but just in the past couple of years, where you've seen funds and banks, big names like Sequoia and Credit Suisse and the like, that historically have just been focused on technology investments or just broader, commercially oriented returns, right, type investments. And they have either started making investments out of their existing funds in sustainability and climate tech, or they have launched actual dedicated funds for sustainability and climate tech. And I think that it's just a sign of the times, isn't it? That now some of the most interesting things going on in the investing world are just by happenstance things that are good for the planet as well, because there's just such a need and there's so many pain points that just need to be solved that are related to improving the planet's health. So you combine that with what we saw with COVID, which in 2020, there was a massive slowdown in investing activity, which, not surprisingly, a lot of investors took a flight to safety. They paused their investment activity so that they could reserve their capital for their existing portfolio companies in case they needed support through the crisis, which at the time everybody thought was this temporary thing. And so in 2021, when everyone obviously realized this, this thing was here to stay, and then there was suddenly a surfeit of capital in the market from the decrease in activity in 2020, now there has just been excess capital, chasing after interesting investment opportunities, and in just basic supply and demand dynamics, it has just bid up the prices and the valuations for basically all stages of investments across all industries, although it affects some more than others, which I'll dive into here in just a second. And so far, we've seen that trend continue into 2022. So in short, I guess what the point is here is it's a really good time to be a startup, an early stage startup in climate tech. If you're trying to raise capital of different kinds, I think you can do it now and one, be relatively assured that you will be able to raise, which is the first question. And two, also be relatively assured that you'd be able to do so with pretty low dilution for the founders. Just a little bit of data here to back that statement up. You'll see there was $32 billion raised globally in 2021, which was almost 5 times more since the Paris Agreement was signed 5 years ago, which is pretty staggering. And this is just in climate tech alone, right? This is not overall venture capital activity. And you can kind of see it broken down by stages here. So, again, a bit more data to support the statement about valuations. This is taken from a report from PwC, but this is also very much in line with what we have seen, in our proprietary deal flow at our fund. So the interesting point here to focus on is this line here is number of deals, which you see has stayed relatively flat. And then the bars is deal flow in terms of number of dollars invested, which has sharply increased. And so obviously that just points to, again, this dramatic increase in valuations. And so our fund at One Ventures has a global mandate. And so we see deal flow from Europe. About 30% of our deal flow comes from Europe. And then, about maybe 60% comes from the US, and then the remaining from other parts of the world. And so we have also seen this dynamic in our deal flow where, there's been almost a doubling or tripling of average valuations for seed and Series A stage companies, which, is kind of in line with the market data you see here. So interestingly, we being a Silicon Valley-based fund, but also with a London presence, we have an interesting perspective on this, where the Valley is often known for being, the highest volume and the greatest activity of deals, and that is still somewhat true. But what a really nice new trend has been in the past year is Europe is actually the fastest growing region for climate tech now, where you see here the arc in the middle. There's been this kind of 7xing growth rate in Europe versus, more 5.8 in US and Canada and lower in Asia. And of course, everyone always points to San Francisco, which is also where we're headquartered. But, the second most active investment hub in terms of cities in the world is now London, which, some may find surprising. In fact, there's, a few other interesting stats about how some of the most capital in the world for new funds has actually been raised in the UK. So especially if you are a startup based in the UK at the moment, it is even better time for you to be raising capital. So all very positive, frothy, and bullish trends. If I move into maybe just some other more qualitative 5 recent trends that we've noticed, from our perspective, one about industry where, kind of a big shift towards food tech and ag tech, a rise of other asset classes, because I think a lot of people tend to focus mostly on traditional venture capital and equity, but there's a lot of interesting other securities that have been coming up significantly recently. A shift in stage where they have more pre-seed and seed deals being done. And then just broadly more in climate in general, I think you're starting to see the carbon markets take shape and climate equality become a greater focus. So I'll just dive into these. So historically, I think when people talk about clean tech and climate tech, what dominates the landscape are deals in transportation and mobility, and related to that, energy, right? Because you can't really electrify transportation without also talking about the grid and those kinds of solutions. And that continued to be the trend in terms of sheer volume of dollars, because those also tend to be very capital intensive deals, which means that the investment sizes have to be larger. So $58 billion invested in that segment. But what's interesting is if you look at food and ag in the same period, there were actually more deals done in terms of number of deals. So 354 for food and ag instead of 348 in transportation and mobility. And again, from our proprietary deal flow, which I'm not allowed to put as much in print on these slides, but I can verbalize for you, we've definitely seen that coming up as well. And what we've also seen is that actually food tech, and to a lesser extent ag tech, mostly food tech, has seen the sharpest increase in valuations. So that big frothiness that I mentioned earlier has been the most pronounced in food tech. We're seeing seed stage companies going for $100 million valuation, pre-seed companies going for, $20, $30 million valuation. And so it's, some say it might be a bubble. It certainly is quite exciting for those that are raising capital. I would advise, a very thoughtful approach, and this is what we tell our portfolio companies as well, that are in this space right now that's quite hot, food and ag, that it can be tempting to try and raise a lot while the valuations are high, but we generally try to recommend that startups be careful, because raising at a high valuation now is favorable, but if the fundamentals of the company do not continue to support that valuation in the following year, when there might be a market correction and valuations may come back down, then they run the risk of potentially having to raise a down round, where the valuation of a subsequent round is lower than the previous round. And that just has some really negative dilution consequences for everybody involved, your existing investors and the founders and everyone. So, while I'm making all these comments about the frothy market, I do feel the need to also footnote and caveat that it should be taken with a grain of salt.
Just 2 minutes, please, Helen. Sorry about the timing.
Okay, sure, that's fine. I'll just get past this. This is some of our portfolio companies in the food and ag space. Investor shift and focus to earlier stages. So here you'll see, it used to be a bit of a valley of death, where there was a dearth of capital in the seed stages, and that is now being recognized. A lot of investors, also driven by that frothy market and high valuations, are now kind of shifting to this area. Some interesting names and funds at these stages, including us, of course. The other asset classes I mentioned, so beyond just equity, you're seeing a lot more venture debt, which I think people often forget about. As early as Series B, I think startups are now able to start raising some venture debt in a hybrid round of a combination of debt and equity, which can be great for minimizing dilution and also just demonstrating that you have strong cash flow in your company. And also some interesting nonprofits out there doing securities such as redeemable shares that kind of align better to a startup's needs and behave a bit like equity and a bit like debt. Carbon markets shaping up, they used to have a bit of issue with credibility. There was a bit of controversy. Lots of interesting startups trying to tackle these issues now. And what that does, importantly, is it opens up a pathway for other businesses that are focusing on ecosystem restoration at scale to be able to monetize and commercialize their businesses. So if you're launching a way to plant trees, historically, who would pay for that? Well, now you can go sell some interesting carbon credits, and in a way, when we partner with these other startups to do really interesting remote sensing to verify those credits, and you have a viable pathway to commercialization. And so we're seeing a lot of knock-on effects from the carbon markets taking shape happening now as well. And the last trend is about climate equality, which is basically that the global south is very low in terms of contribution to greenhouse gases, but will be one of the first, unfortunately, to feel some of the most catastrophic effects of climate change. And so a lot of investors are now taking that into account. For example, we have our investment here in the background, OPBus, that takes end-of-life fossil fuel vehicles and converts them, retrofits them and converts them to electric vehicles. And because there are apparently 40% of the world's end-of-life vehicles that are exported to Africa from Europe and the US. And so there's a bit of this dumping effect that happens with certain industries like that, and a lot of interesting investments to try and mitigate those effects now. What are investors looking for? I'll speed through this, and this is my last slide, and I'll leave you with these thoughts. Because there is so much activity going on right now, I think you have to try and differentiate yourself and stand head and shoulders above the rest. And how do you do that? You have to show disruptive unit economics. And by that, we mean don't trade off financial returns for impact, right? Don't base your business model off of paying green premiums and people paying more for sustainability. Tackle big markets. So think really big. We use a metric called total addressable impact. So, very, very large industries with large emissions footprints and trying to disrupt those. Thinking planetary, which is the climate equality point I was just talking about. And the last point I think is very important, which is that net zero is not enough. And so even if we seized all of the emissions from industry today, there would still be enough greenhouse gas in the atmosphere to result in catastrophic climate destabilization. And so pushing for things that can draw down and sequester and take us to a point where humanity is net positive to nature and the planet, that's where we need to be. And those are the kinds of things that I think investors are looking for today. So that's me done. I think, yes.
Thank you very much indeed. That's terrific for setting the context for us in terms of those trends. Very exciting to see the big increase in funding for the clean tech sector, not least in Europe. Whether everybody in the room today feels that they're benefiting from that thus far might be a moot point and could come out in the questions later, but the context setting was terrific. That's really helpful. Thank you very much indeed, Helen. Right, just conscious of time, so I'm going to keep us moving on. And next, I'm delighted to introduce Andrew Aldridge, who's a senior consultant at one of our latest associate founder members, NovAzure. And he's going to talk to us about sustainability as a key focus in business development. Andrew, over to you.
Hi. Sorry, that's okay. Sorry. Yes, thank you. Sorry, is there an echo? Or is it just me?
A little bit of an echo, Andrew, but I think you can press on. It's not a problem.
Okay. Well, thank you, Martin, for the introduction. I'll give you a short introduction in terms of NovAzure as an outfit. I'll just share some slides and give you a bit of an overview, and then talk more widely about how we're seeing sustainability sort of really driving the adoption of new business models. Sorry, Oriana, I'm having a bit of a problem.
Yeah, let me just get your slides up. Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, sorry. It's a different computer.
So I'll just get it up for you. Is that okay?
Yeah, if you could just move to the next slide, that'd be great. Okay, so NovAzure, we're a strategic consulting business. And early stage investment business. We started about 2017. We have a combined expertise both in corporate and venture capital investment across energy, mobility, and there's a core focus in the clean tech sector. We work both with corporates and with early stage companies, essentially bridging the innovation gap. So helping corporates identify disruptive businesses, changes in the marketplace for clean tech solutions, and then working with them to understand which emerging technologies are coming through and forming partnerships with emerging clean tech innovators. We work with the innovators themselves to really help them map out their strategic approach to the market, understand how they can develop through collaboration with corporates, understand the delivery of their solution into the marketplace through different channel partnerships. And we've been spending a lot of the time in the area of sustainability, particularly helping early stage companies map out the values that they're delivering for the market, both across financial value, but increasingly into carbon value across energy and real estate. So we can just flip to the next slide. I mean, Helen's already been through this in terms of the key drivers that we're now seeing across a number of different sectors with clean tech. As we're all aware, increasing push towards localizing supply chains and greening last mile delivery. So whether that's manufacturing of cars is now becoming more and more localized in terms of supply chains. Delivery, we're seeing a number of key logistics changes moving to electric delivery and smaller, more efficient delivery vehicles. And then across the other networks into circular economy, people are driven from sustainability perspective to understanding how resources are being utilized in their business and how they can be much more efficient in the way that they use those resources, and to think more about the end of life proposition for their products. So we're seeing this a lot, in particular in sort of electric cars, where regulations and users are starting to understand what happens to the car at the end of its life, and particularly the element of the battery. An area that we're seeing quite a lot of focus is also around the use of deep data and how that data itself is growing. It's becoming a growing source of energy consumption across businesses as we move not only from sort of streaming services for commercial use, but the need for deep level of data analytics, the transition towards autonomous vehicles is driving a significant upswing in terms of energy consumption. And if we're going to be sustainable, we have to ensure that increased use of data is sustainable. So we're looking at increased energy efficiency, increased optimization of data networks. And then as we move into smart cities and smart grids, it's really the infrastructure that's behind the transition to clean tech, in terms of urban mobility, in terms of the transition to sort of decarbonizing of heating and other services across both domestic and commercial buildings, and how the grid is there to support it. I can move to the next slide. Sorry. Helen's already given a very good overview really across the drivers behind this. We saw in COP26 back in November an increasing commitment to net zero goals for governments, and the governments are now being held accountable, as are corporates, really to articulate exactly what they are doing to drive the transition to net zero and reduce coal and reduce other fossil fuels. Legislation is certainly helping in those areas. We're now seeing transition towards low emission zones in many cities that are driving a transition in mobility particularly towards electric. And then policies around sort of active travel are encouraging people to use alternative forms of e-scooters, e-bikes, etc. And I think the business opportunity then behind the transition to low carbon buildings, how do we improve the energy efficiency of the buildings that we use, both domestic, our own homes, through to commercial premises. And now we're seeing a change in building standards and building regulations to ensure that the buildings are being designed and with a view to increasing sustainability in terms of how they're managed and how they're using resources. The big challenge is clearly going to be retrofitting, and that's where we're seeing quite a lot of attention. Consumers, as we're saying, increasingly are starting to drive some of this change. We're seeing, I think, picking up on Helen's point about agtech, is that individual consumers are driving supermarkets to make changes, and we're starting to see that transition towards reduction in plastics, reduction in energy, and a more sustainable approach. We go to the next slide.
Just another minute, please, Andrew.
Okay, so I'll run through where have we been seeing the business opportunities in sustainability. It's really helping businesses to articulate the early stage business on the transition to sustainability and how they can address the challenges that are faced by their clients and to deliver real value. So we've developed ourselves very much a value-led approach to business development, focusing very much on the sustainable perspectives of technology solutions. So it's identifying clearly the needs of the market, your customer, what values are being created by your product and service that can help the client themselves to sort of make a transition to net zero, both in terms of energy usage, but also thinking more laterally about how they can be much more efficient in the way they use space, physical space, and resources across their business, water, air conditioning usage, and other areas. So we've got limited time, so if you could move to the next slide to give you a tangible demonstration of this. We've worked very closely here with a business that's developed liquid cooling technology for data centers. And as I alluded to before, we're seeing data usage driving energy consumption, and that's then making those operators of data centers, both central data centers and increasingly grid edge data processing, to be much more efficient and to look at how they're greening their business and making it much more sustainable. So we worked with this client in particular to really help them understand how their solution is helping their customers on that journey, both their energy consumption to make their solution smaller, more leaner, and much more efficient, and delivering much wider value benefits to their customers. So it's really thinking through the whole strategy, how they achieve greater penetration for their technology, working in collaboration with their customers on a shared performance basis. So I guess what we're seeing with the sustainability sector increasingly is the need to sort of servitize your proposition. So you're creating a balanced performance risk with your customer. You're sharing that risk. You're getting that helps to accelerate the adoption of your solution, and it really helps to then sort of drive the development of your business. So sustainability, we're seeing very much at the core of the strategic approach and the business model behind the development of clean tech propositions. Do you want to move to the next slide? I think that's pretty much wrapped up. This is just a brief summary of NovAzure, and happy to have some further discussions in the Q&A.
Andrew, thank you very much for that. Thank you for wrapping up. I think that gives a terrific overview of the work that you undertake within the clean tech sector. And you mentioned that case study as well. I think we may well be working on an event looking at data centers later in the year and energy efficiency in relation to data centers in particular. So we'll probably include some corporates in that and also some of the innovators who are coming up with the solutions. So thank you very much for that. Let's keep moving on. And next we have Vaughan, who's the Director of Sustainable Finance at HSBC. And Vaughan, you're going to tell us about green loans and sustainability linked loans as well. Vaughan, over to you.
Thank you very much, Martin. I will do my best to cover it in short order. As any good banker should, I have some slides to share, so hopefully you can see those now. I'll provide a quick introduction to myself, what the bank is doing, and the sustainable finance products that we utilise to assist our customers in their own journeys. So as Martin said, my name is Vaughan. I'm a director in the sustainable finance team at HSBC. I cover the whole of the UK, so from the large listed PLCs all the way across to small business banking. If it's green or sustainable, it will come across my desk at some point. Now, a big part of my job is going out and talking to customers about their own journeys and how we can help them to achieve their net zero goals. Very difficult to do that if we as an organisation don't have a strong strategy ourselves. Now, I'm not going to go through everything on this slide, but it's sustainability is key and a core principle of HSBC strategy, split out into the 3 pillars you see in front of you: becoming a net zero bank, supporting our customers, and unlocking new climate solutions. The 3 main ones I always refer to are that we will be net zero from our own operations by 2030 or sooner. We'll put out between $750 billion and $1 trillion of finance to support green and sustainable projects and investments, again by 2030, and that we will be net zero from our financed portfolio by 2050. That it basically means our scope 3 emissions, the emissions of all our customers, will be included within that calculation, and that is a very challenging and stretching target and one that I'm very, very proud of, particularly with reference to today. There's 2 other things I'll bring out from here and have recently been announced, that we've partnered with the Global Solutions Partnership with the World Resources Institute and WWF to support clean innovation, nature-based solutions and renewable energy in Asia. And probably even more relevant is our anchor membership in the Breakthrough Energy Catalyst, which is focusing on providing investment to clean energy technologies, with a particular focus on direct air carbon capture, green hydrogen, and long duration energy storage, and sustainable aviation fuel. So as mentioned, a big part of my role is talking to our customers, talking to clients about how we can assist. The 2 main products that I'll talk about are green loans and sustainability linked loans. We follow the Loan Markets Association green loan and sustainability linked loan principles very, very closely. There's obvious reasons for this. We want to protect our customers' reputations, the bank's reputation, but indeed sustainable finance as a product, as an idea, we want to ensure that the integrity of that is maintained, to ensure that it remains a relevant and suitable tool to assist in the transition. Now, the Loan Markets Association principles were published to provide market participants with a suitable framework to ensure that the facilities that they were putting in place met the standards in order to be considered green or sustainable. So go through them one by one. So green loan principles have 4 pillars. The first being use of proceeds. Now, as a use of proceeds facility, it means that all of the funds need to be used for a particular green purpose. On the right-hand side of the slide, you'll see some particular examples. For this purposes, I'll use solar panels. It's a relatively straightforward example. So use of proceeds, very easy to evidence. It's for buying solar panels. Pillar 2 is the project evaluation and selection. And this is where the environmentally beneficial impact of a particular project is evidenced. Again, with solar panels, the generation of renewable energy, so very, very clear and relatively easy to evidence. Pillar number 3, management proceeds. The facilities and funds should be managed separately from normal funds of the organisation, so that they can be evidence to be used for a particular purpose. And then pillar 4 is reporting. And again, relatively straightforward, as I've previously mentioned, for a solar panel, the evidence for environmentally beneficial impact, use of proceeds and management of proceeds, all very straightforward and needs to be provided to the bank. Now, while talking about green loans, we've recently announced the Green SME Fund, which is a £500 million fund to support the SMEs who are potentially been viewed historically as being rather underserved in this area, without anything to assist them in the transition, to evidence that they're doing the right thing here. So the Green SME Fund is aimed at businesses with turnover of £25 million or less. There is 1% cashback available for funds drawn within the first year and used towards green purposes, and generally the loans are between £1,000 and £25 million. Evidence needs to be provided to show that what the funds have been used for fits in within our eligibility guide. That's available on our website if you want to go and find it. But it is things like solar panels, EVs, and related infrastructure points. Just go and have a look and obviously reach out if there's any questions around those. Next, I'll move on to the sustainability linked loans. These are slightly more complex products, again put out in line with the Loan Markets Association principles. They have 5 core components. The first one being KPIs. So these are your longer term 2030, 40, 50 targets. They should be part of the overall strategy of the business, relevant, core and material, measurable and quantifiable on a consistent methodology basis. Component 2 is the calibration of those SBTs, and this is essentially distilling down the longer term targets into targets that can be put into a facility documentation and tested annually. So they need to be relevant and ambitious for the life of the loan, beyond business as usual trajectory. The LMA principles look for 3 years of historics to essentially refer back to and show this is how we've performed in the prior 3 years. These are the targets we're going to set, and we can evidence that these are beyond what we would standard or what we would expect to hit in a normal course of business. Component number 3 is loan characteristics. This is a margin ratchet, either up or down, depending on performance against those predefined performance targets. Component 4, reporting. As per normal financial reporting, it's generally on at least an annual basis to be reported to the lenders, and the borrowers are encouraged to publicly report the SBTs and performance against those. Pillar 5 is the verifications, an addition from the May 2021 update. And this is a requirement that a third-party verifier needs to be employed to provide verification around the performance against those targets. Generally, that can be undertaken via an auditor if they offer that service, or there are any number of businesses that will provide that on a stand-alone basis. We appreciate that SMEs are facing a number of challenges in this area. So we have published some insights around the guide to net zero and how to get started in sustainability. The whole area of sustainability is filled with lots of acronyms and huge amounts of different information from different areas. So those are 2 particular tools that can be used, available again on the website, around how to get started in this particular area. There's lots of benefits to undertaking and getting involved with this kind of facility. Mostly, the ones I like to bring out is the reputational and recognition, where you have a strategy in place, where you are putting in green finance, sustainability linked finance. It's good to be able to evidence to your internal and external stakeholders that you are linking your cost of capital to those particular facilities.
1 minute, please, Vaughan.
No problem at all. I was just about to wrap up. More than happy to go into more detail in the Q&A on any of these particular products, but that was a quick canter through HSBC's strategy and some of the facilities that we can use to assist our customers in their own net zero journeys. So I hope to speak to you all in the Q&A.
Vaughan, terrific. Thank you very much for that. The 500 million Green SME Fund, I'm sure will raise a few eyebrows and some questions. We've had a couple of questions, but we'll leave those to the Q&A at the end because I'm conscious of time running over a little bit. So let's keep moving. Chris Parkhouse is next up. Chris is the Regional Director or Regional Development Director at CATAX, so one of our associate founder members. And you're going to talk to us, Chris, all about capital allowances, R&D and patent box tax relief. Chris, over to you.
Thanks very much, Martin. I'm actually going to talk to you about grants. I'll touch on R&D, patent box and patent box relief, all the tax relief schemes for innovative SMEs. But yeah, my name's Chris. I work for CATAX. We are a specialist consultancy helping innovative businesses to do really two things. One of it is getting tax allowances for R&D work that you've already done for generating tax reliefs from patents that you've generated. My area is specialist in grants and grant funding and UK and European grants for new projects. And that's kind of what I wanted to focus on today, moving projects from TRL3 upwards. And the reason I'm doing it this way is I want to give everyone a bit of a high level sort of view of grant funding, how it works, what it does. The reason for that is I spend, probably the majority of my time explaining to people about grants, how they work, what they do, how you go about getting them. And forgive me if anyone in here who knows all about grant funding, but I wanted to make sure that we can give you some value in what is available and give you some ideas of what is available. So as I say, we specialise in primarily UK funding for new projects. We look at the largest pots available in the UK, the likes of Innovate UK, UKRI that you've all heard of, and there's a huge driver from these funding bodies that we've seen over the last couple of years towards clean tech, net zero, green technologies, whether it is development or deployment of these sort of technologies. And another way you can get finance towards some of these developments is by using grants. So what I'll start with is, really briefly, how does a grant work? What is it there for? So, and this is an average across the board. Every grant fund works slightly differently. So we're going to use something like Innovate UK Smart and give you a really sort of average look about how a grant works. So ultimately, grant is a grant from the funding body for work you haven't already done. It is for a plan that you want to do. It is there primarily for the earlier stages of kind of development of technologies. So those earlier TRLs 1 to 3 and 3 to 6, the prototyping, the development of those ideas, taking them off paper into practice. And it's putting together a plan to do that. And that's what a grant application is. It is what I like to call the who, what, where, why, when, and how of grants. It is, what are you doing? Why are you wanting to do it? How are you going to do it? Who do you need on it? Do you have all the skills in-house to develop your technology to achieve the impact that you're wanting to do? If not, are you bringing in partners? Do you need to bring in university partners? Do you need to bring in industry partners to help move this technology along? And all of these costs can go into a grant application. Generally, at the earlier TRLs, moving from sort of TRL 1 to 3, TRL 4 to 6, those early stages, grants pay generally around 70% of the total project cost towards a grant, towards this project. So you can significantly de-risk technology development for a project. If you're getting 70% of the project cost to do, it's all of a sudden a lot easier to do it. And it's also a lot easier to push forward with what you want to do and perhaps achieve a slightly greater impact and add features to a technology or an idea that you wanted to do that you might not have had the finance or the time or the skills to do when you try and do it yourself. So one of the things to bear in mind with funding that I'll come on to in a moment is the way grants are paid to you. Because I've looked through grant information, and someone may be able to point me differently, but I've been doing this many years, and I don't think I've ever seen in an Innovate UK presentation or in any of their briefing guidance how you get paid a grant. It is quarterly in arrears and you claim back. It's one of those things that I have to explain to almost every client I speak to who's not been through the grant funding process before. So it's something important to bear in mind, and I'll come on to why at the end. The timescales are something to bear in mind with funding as well. Nothing happens fast in funding. but generally between 3 and 6 months, you will have an answer. We can put an application together, submit it, and you get an answer whether you've been successful in 3 to 6 months with most of the UK funding bodies. So it's not particularly quick, but it's not particularly slow either. And if you are looking at developing new tech, developing new ideas, you're looking at innovating, this is where grants can really, really help push technology forward and drive businesses forward. So what we'll do with this one is we'll look at a SMART project, which is Innovate UK's open innovation program. And the reason we use that is because it's not aimed at any particular industry or sector. So it gives a really good average of kind of what funding is available and how it works. So for something like SMART, you've got 2 levels. For smaller projects, you've got 100,000 to £500,000 between 6 and 18 months. Larger projects, you've got up to 2 million for projects between 19 and 36 months. And I do apologise, the costs on that one should be £500,000 to 2 million. That's doing presentations late at night for you. So yeah, we have that second level for the larger projects. For the larger ones, you do need to collaborate with an SME or collaborate with an industry or a research and technology organisation partner. But there's a big scope there, and SMART has 3 to 4 deadlines a year. So it is a program that is always there and always looking for new projects. And we've just seen this huge focus on clean tech, on hydrogen, on net zero, on reducing emissions in all different industry sectors. And that is something that I think businesses are really underutilising, either because they don't know about it or because they don't know how to navigate the minefield of getting grants. And that's what hopefully we can start simplifying some of that for you. For earlier stage projects, it works small, medium, large businesses, you can see there. If you are an earlier stage prototype development as such, you've got 70% of costs, medium-sized businesses 60, 50% for large businesses. So even a large business can still access this funding. The later stage technologies, that is in the UK a little bit of what we call a valley of death in funding. When you get to those later TRLs just prior to commercialisation, that is where the funding that you can get gets a lot fewer and further between. And that's where you are better off either looking at European funds, depending on what happens with that, or looking at certainly private investment that will hopefully, and some of the investors in the room may tell me different, but hopefully will look at your project and your technology more favourably because you've gone through a process of developing it in a grant application. And then for them, again, it de-risks it because you've got some prior work on developing this technology. So this is probably my favourite slide, and the one I send to almost everyone I speak to who's not been through the funding process before. Getting ready to apply for a grant, it's not something you can just walk into, put an application, submit it, great, it will never win. You've got to look at it, you've got to take a step back, and you've got to go through a bit of a process. They are highly competitive funding programs, especially SMART. The last year, we've seen over 1,000 projects submitted to each funding round. So that is a very competitive pool. They are a complex and time-consuming process. So I would tell everyone to start thinking about your project sooner before you even look at funding. Start mapping out what do you want to do? How are you going to take this technology from this kind of really early stage that you are to a later stage, to almost to a market ready stage? What do you really need to do to get it there? And why are you doing it? Your business plan. Why are you doing this? How are you going to commercialize this? How are you going to make money for it? This is something we've seen in funding over the years that's becoming more and more important, that you have to show how you're going to be a commercial product after that you've got funding. Your team, do you have all the skills in-house to do what you want to do? Do you need to bring in other partners? Is there someone you've heard of? Places such as this, meetings such as this are absolutely perfect for finding people who may know something in your area of technology who could add value. You could bring them in as a partner and really develop that technology forward. Finances. Finances are really important in grants. As I said earlier, you will get generally at best in a grant 70% of total project costs. and your project is funded quarterly in arrears. So if you have got a 12-month, £100,000 project, keep it really simple, and you're aiming to spend £25,000 a quarter over your project and then claim back those costs, you need to be able to prove to the funding body that you have either the revenue or the financial backing to carry that out, that project. So it could be an investor who has said, okay, if you win grant, we're going to put £100,000 in, float your project, and then we'll get our payment back monthly, and then we'll come up with an investment arrangement for later on down the line. And that's how we've helped a lot of our clients. We've brought investors in early. They haven't had to put up huge sums of money, and it's on the basis of having a successful grant funded project. So conversations with investors are absolutely paramount, but I think most would like to hear the fact that you are trying to exploit all of the revenues that are potentially open to you, even just a conversation about what is available, because grant funding changes all the time. There's all sorts of different grants that are available. Some may be better than others to go for, and this is where organisations like ourselves can help at least signpost you in the right direction for what's there.
Just another minute, please, Chris.
No problem. We'll then come on to the second side of our business. While you are doing R&D, there is a government scheme, R&D tax allowances, which allows you to reduce corporation tax liability, or if you haven't got one, to get, in some cases, depending on your position, a cash benefit based on research and development activities you are carrying out. If you are generating IP, there is a scheme called Patent Box, which essentially you opt into, and that provides further tax reliefs on IP that you are commercially exploiting. So yeah, I think I'll try to keep on time, Martin. We'll leave it there.
Thank you very much, Chris, and thank you, Chris, for focusing on the grant side of your business. You provide terrific advice and support. Quite often, I find some of the grant giving authorities is a bit like smoke and mirrors. I think your sort of down to earth and plain English approach is very much appreciated.
Exactly why I did it. Exactly why I did it that way, man. I've sat through, the main funding body's presentations, and I know what I'm talking about, and I've still come out more confused than I went in.
Exactly, yeah.
Some very, very basic questions that I can answer in less than 10 minutes.
Yeah, terrific. Thank you very much for that. It also leads us nicely into our next speaker, Zlatka, who's one of our long-standing members at Cambridge Cleantech, been with us for 10 years. Thank you for your support, Zlatka. You're going to talk about how you can bid for grants and for other financial opportunities, I guess, with collaborators, with other partners. Zlatka, over to you.
Thank you, Martin. So my presentation actually follows up very nicely from the previous presentation from Chris. So I'm Zlatka. I'm a managing director and founder of DZP Technologies Limited. And today I will speak about how we used co-bidding to secure funding for our business. Next slide, please. Yeah. I will start with a brief introduction to our company. We are a technology development company. We are based in the Future Business Center in Cambridge. We develop and supply electronic materials for printed and plastic electronics. Our materials are intermediate products in complex and global supply chains. And what this means is the end customer doesn't usually see our products and where they sit. So sometimes it's a bit difficult to explain actually what we sell because our products are part of something bigger which reaches the customer. We work across many different sectors like consumer electronics, electric vehicles, wearable technology, and many others. We have found in the past that our business model is not very attractive actually to private investors. And this is mostly because we work on hardware, so development times are very long, time to market is very long, and investors are usually not very patient to wait for time to market. So it was very good to hear the previous talks that hopefully this might be changing and investors are prepared to invest in earlier stage developments. So as an example here on this slide, I have shown a lithium-ion battery pack, which was developed in our company, and it was produced here in our company using our patented materials and technology. one of the important features is that each battery cell can be reused, which is a major innovation because it can reduce the cost of electric vehicle ownership, but also contributes to reuse, remanufacturing, and sustainability. So for this particular technology, we also tried to look for business angel funding. We spoke to private investors, and again, they felt it's too early. They wanted engagement from OEMs in order for them to jump in. So we couldn't raise private investment for this particular technology. But what we did, maybe if you move to the next slide, we used co-bidding to secure some grant funding to take this forward. So we applied for the Energy Catalyst program, which is delivered by Innovate UK. And we were successful in securing funding for this project, which is entitled Innovative Off-Grid Energy Storage for Sub-Saharan Africa using portable and affordable sodium-ion battery system. So to do that, we joined forces with two other SMEs. One of them is ASON Limited. This is another UK-based company. They're in Telford. And a company in Nigeria called Nevadic Solar. We also have university partner, University of Wolverhampton. So with these partners, we submitted a joint bid, and the total grant is over £1 million for the whole consortium over 2 years. And the total project costs are £1.5 million. So as I said earlier, we couldn't secure funding from private investment, but we could secure this grant funding to take this technology forward. The project will combine solar energy generation with novel batteries, and our contribution will be to work on the battery pack, which I showed on the previous slide, including second life use of the batteries for sustainability. The project generated a lot of interest. So just before Christmas, it featured on BBC News. You can see here the managing director of ASON showing the solar generator with solar panels powering quite a few devices. And on the other photo, we are already trialing this system in Nigeria and collecting feedback from local communities, from people here, how they want to use it. Next slide. So just a few thoughts and reflections about the lessons we have learned about co-bidding. It is very important to choose the right project partners and the right funding source, and make sure that the project is aligned with your business strategy, as Chris mentioned earlier as well. The grant is not just cash in the bank. You have to make sure that it actually is what you want to do with your business, and there is a purpose to it. It is also important to make sure you understand the value of your technology and your value proposition. What have you got to offer to the partners in the project, but also to other stakeholders? It is important to watch out for IP and other terms in the collaboration agreement to make sure that after the project ends, you actually have the rights to commercialize your innovation. Something really interesting is that you can leverage funding from the sponsor as well as other partners to demonstrate and validate the technology. So for this specific project, our contribution, our part is actually quite small. However, we use the funding from the sponsor as well as the funding which goes to the other partners to validate our technology. And this becomes quite significant amount of money, which actually becomes available to you indirectly. It is also important to consider the post-project business model in terms of your collaborators, how you will work with them after the project. Is it a collaboration or is it competition? What this future business relationship will be, for example, direct sales, joint venture, further joint development, and so on. So it is important to consider all these issues actually at the time even when you apply for the grant. And if anyone is interested to discuss this in more detail, please get in touch, drop me an email or connect on LinkedIn, and I'm very happy to speak to everyone.
Zlatka, thank you very much indeed. Great to see that real life case study, just following on from Chris's presentation in particular. So thank you very much indeed for that. Again, just conscious of time, running over a little, so delighted now to introduce Bev Hurley, a long-standing partner of Cambridge Cleantech. And Bev's going to talk to us about the coaching part of the Growth Works programme, which is part of the Cambridgeshire and Peterborough Combined Authorities programme. Bev, over to you.
Thank you very much, Martin. Great pleasure to be with you here this afternoon now. Just put this onto full screen. I got your hints about talking fast, so I will go through these slides as quickly as possible. GrowthWorks is the brand for the whole service of which we are delivering the coaching component. There is a skills component and an inward investment, which is also now starting to do some export support. So it's more than just the bit I'm going to talk to you about today. Excuse me. So my company have been through this high growth equity investment from both sides. I'm an angel. We've raised about 80 million for clients as well now. Private sector company, used to be headquartered in Cambridge, and glad to be back. 40 years, we've supported around about 24,000 SMEs to take new technology to market, to grow and scale organically, and so on. And we put a premium in our business on employing people who have actually done it for themselves, who have run their own businesses, to bring that credibility rather than an academic approach to what we deliver. We've also got the warts and all of going through it ourselves. We have 100 people now in the company, have been there before. And so managing the tipping points of high growth or rapid growth is a really exciting challenge. And so again, it's bringing this practical and professional expertise to bear. We used to be only in the commercial sector. We started delivering funded business support programs back in 2006. And GrowthWorks is funded by the Cambridgeshire and Peterborough Combined Authority with a bit of European money in the pot. And straightforward, we're looking to find 1,000 best businesses in the region. Best businesses defined by your ambition and your ability to grow and scale. Sector agnostic, so everybody is welcome. This is what's on offer. The core part in the middle is delivered by us in the growth coaching service. I'm going to just pick out some of the more salient slides just very quickly, but also we have a big ecosystem of experts and partners and connections that we can bring to the piece as well. Starting off with my growth advisory team, who do an in-depth review across all aspects of your business, your growth model, your commercialization, product market fit, people, all sorts, finance. Have you got enough finance to get you to where you need to go? That's where we start, understanding and prioritizing your needs and how the GrowthWorks as a whole can best help you. We have a rolling program of expert, highly professional, usually strategic level masterclasses and courses which rotate throughout each quarter on the key drivers of business success. We are building out an expert knowledge base of independent people, investors, coaches, experts in their field, whatever that field is. And you'll understand why shortly. But one of the reasons for doing this is because when you're a growing business, quite often you don't know where to go to find the sort of person that you want. So we're building a kind of tried and trusted set of experts and coaches that we can bring in to help. Later on this year, we're going to be developing a mentor program which will enrich what we can do using some of those experts who've already kindly donated some time to help us best support those businesses. And that will be part of our Growth Champions community, which will have some kind of accelerator program in it for the top performing companies who we want to follow on their journey. We have an e-learning program for lots of self-help, which you can dip into and educate yourself on different sorts of things with a load of professional resources, 4,000 or 5,000 words to back that up. We've just finished running a BASE program of peer-to-peer networks where you're matched by size, sometimes by sector, to come together every fortnight, share challenges, learn from each other. Really powerful and very compelling. And we are going to continue that service even though the national one has finished. So now the more exciting bit, show me the money. We started off with a £4 million revenue grant pot, 50% matched. So anything that is classified as revenue spend, once you're a client in our service, you can apply for a grant. So here it would be, for example, the strategic support of some of the previous speakers to help you write Innovate UK or smart grant bids or patenting or sales and marketing or HR or anything like that. Anything that's revenue spend is eligible. We have a really streamlined process for this because we are an SME. We know how painful it is. And we've run a lot of grant schemes. So we try to keep all the paperwork to a minimum. Sometimes we can't do much about it. And so for the current level of revenue grants, we're looking at projects at around 10 to 12K. So a grant of 5 to 6K. Later on this year, there might be a little bit more flex in that. If you're going to unlock significant amounts of job creation as a result of the project, then we might have a little bit of flexibility there to support you at a higher level. Process very straightforward. You will be given a growth advisor. They will help you. We have the sign off on the grants. As soon as it's all been reviewed by the panel, said yes, you get a grant offer letter, you sign it, you go and do your project. Then can't be pre-existing work. You start your project. When you've done it, you put your claim evidence in and we review it, and provided it's all compliant, we pay you. So nice and straightforward. A slightly different process for our CAPEX pot. This is grants for the minimum grant is 20,000. The maximum is 150,000 for any CAPEX investment. So as I'm sure you can realize, this is hugely oversubscribed. We will give you an informal score beforehand so you know whether you have a chance of going forward. Slightly more paperwork, has a two-stage panel within the combined authority for sign-off and approval. But the same process after that. We give you a grant offer letter, you go and buy your kit, send us the evidence. Once that's been approved, then we can pay you. So a slightly longer turnaround time for that, from date of submission to date of approval within CPCA, probably a month, because we meet monthly on that panel. We also have an equity pot. We're just working with CPCA now to formalise their investment criteria. Again, it's all about unlocking and accelerating growth. So job creation is really important. They're looking for around one job for every 25K of equity. We'll be working with a number of other co-investors because CPCA won't lead. You need to have a lead investor with twice as much investment committed as you would seek from CPCA investment.
Just 1 minute, please, Bev.
Yep, I'm almost done. Lastly, the new program, which is called the Community Renewal Fund. This is for new startups and smaller, earlier stage businesses in Peterborough, Huntingdon and Fenland only, not in Cambridge, where there are grants of 90% and 80% respectively if you're start or growth, up to 30,000. So a very straightforward submission for that. How can you start? Follow that link. You'll do a quick online diagnostic. You'll get assessed. You'll get invited to enroll in the service. You'll be assigned a growth advisor. And from there, we start whatever you need to accelerate your growth. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you very much. That was a very thorough run through of your menu of opportunities for businesses, clean tech businesses in our case, in the Cambridge area. So thank you very much indeed for that. Right, conscious of time again, so we're going to keep pressing on. Bridget is up next. Bridget Woods, who works for the Consensus Business Group, and you've got an opportunity for some of our clean tech companies that you're going to promote right now.
I do. Thanks, Martin. I'm just going to very quickly screen. No, we're not. Actually, you got that now?
Yeah, we can see it.
Perfect. Right. Hi, my name is Bridget Woods. I'm just here today just to tout an initiative that we're running as part of Consensus Business Group, which is looking directly at sustainability solutions into the built environment. Now, just a bit of a background on us. So Consensus Business Group is a large investment group that was set up initially focused on the UK property sector. Currently, it's believed to be the largest owner of residential management and retail freehold, residential freehold interests in the UK. In the past 20 years, branched out to include investments into technologies, largely focused on pharma, biotech, medtech, but also a large element in clean tech now. And I do recognise some of the names in the group today, which is nice to see. Currently, the net asset value of the group is in excess of 1.2 billion. And last year, in conjunction with the Israeli Innovation Institute, we launched Planet Tech, which we'll pop a link to because it'd be quite interesting for some of you. It's an NGO. It's focused with supporting climate change technologies and building out a global network for climate tech innovators. So it tackles investors and governments and multinationals as well, all focused with the challenge of decarbonising the global economy. And it's through this platform that we're now building out our first pillar, which is that on the built environment. So what we're developing here is a bit of a one-stop shop for looking at the UK initially. It's the market that we know best, whereby property portfolios or individuals or whoever it might be can come in and have a look at solutions that they're able to roll out that will assist them with managing their carbon footprints. You're all aware that there's a lot of misinformation around technologies. When people talk about technology in the property sector, it's always solar or wind or batteries, EV charging, but we know now that it goes much, much deeper than that, and there's some really good innovation going on that people are just not aware of. So we're looking to harness the best and the most innovative that we can find, and using our own network of real estate partners to actually help us improve first concept. So we're trying to make this process as meaningful for everybody involved as we can. The property sector is very varied. We have to consider not just the property managers, residents within those properties, or the clients, whoever they might be, the financial institutions, the lenders, landlords, insurers, that the whole gambit have to be considered. So it's a pretty wide brief. We've been up for a while. We've had pretty good response so far, and it's just a good opportunity today to give you a bit of an overview of what we're looking for. So again, quite broad. These are the 6 sort of category areas that we are focused on at the off. And the driver here is really to get an understanding of what's out there and how it works, how the different business models sit, how they look, how they could possibly interact, both from a platform perspective. Obviously, we've got a platform that we're building out to underpin this, but also practically for the delivery of that technology into a property. Now, through our partners, we've got properties that are the residential side, we've got commercial, housing association, student accommodation. It really is anything goes. We've tried to keep it quite broad so that we're testing that concept across the whole piece and making it as real as possible. and really striving to set up that long-term approach so that this is not a one-hit wonder. We hope this will build out. It will be a process that we will refine and roll out year on year, and just trying to make it, yeah, as I said, measured and impactful. So it's not a waste of time for anybody. So you'll see on the Cambridge website that there is a link that can be followed. It's in the presentation here too, but it's already up. Registration's closed tomorrow. I'm pretty sure if you're really keen and you don't have time, we can stretch it, please, Orianne, out a little bit, maybe into early next week, Martin. And then we need a couple of weeks to go through this. We will then come back to companies and say, right, okay, so now run up your commercial proposal based on a pilot set of data and site that we will give you. We'll have a bit of a Q&A to run through things because it's going to kick up questions for everybody, I think. And once you've done that as a desktop analysis, we'll then get you to go out to site, validate your assumptions, and come back with a refined proposal that should be the finished piece that we will put in front of the properties themselves, and hopefully be able to spin out some pretty exciting initiatives from there. So that in a nutshell is where we are. If you've got any questions, then happily I can refer you to Camilla. But I'll also be in the chat group following this and can answer as many questions as we've got. Thank you.
Bridget, thank you very much for that, and thank you also to Consensus Business Group for being a founder member of Cambridge Cleantech. Thank you for your support. Yeah, happy to extend that opportunity for another week. And it's really calling all property tech companies. If you've got solutions that meet that brief, put them forward. And the reason we're talking about it as an access to finance event is because we can get finance through investment or through grants, but you can also get it through a contract with a corporate. So there could be an opportunity for you there. So we'll keep that open for another week, and good luck with your entries, as they say on the television. Right, Sylvie, because you're Cambridge Cleantech, you've got 1 minute to tell us about Cleantech Venture Day. Thank you.
Thanks, Martin. Well, I'm really pleased to announce that the Cleantech Venture Day for May is open. So all applications are now open. And this event has been running now for 5 years in different formats. So 2 years ago, it was all live. In the last 2 years, it was online. And very excited to let you know that this time, COVID permitted, we will have a session in person on the 18th of May for the investors, followed by a networking reception. Then on the 19th of May will be the pitching day, and this will be online. And then on the 20th, we will have the one-to-one appointments between the pitching companies and the investors. Applications are open, and you can find them on the website cleantechday.com/London. It's open to all clean tech companies all over the world, and especially for companies seeking for Series Seed, Series A and B. And you have until the 10th of March to apply. It's a very simple form, 5 questions about your achievements, goals, teams, and the clean tech contributions. For those who have applied in the past, feel free to ask for a copy of your last applications so you can improve, and we try our best to make the process as easy as possible for you. In terms of the process yourself, so applications open until the 10th of March. They will be then reviewed by a panel of judges, and then all the scores will be combined together. So, you know, just apply and make sure that you have all the 200 words for each questions, but it's really an expert, a panel of experts that will assess your applications. Those selected will be pitching on the 19th of May, and we'll have a training beforehand. So just to give you a summary, we have an average 120 applications. 24 of them will go through a pitching day. The other ones are still reviewed by some judges. So it's not because you're not selected that you don't have any visibilities. There is an opportunities for everyone. And we always have very good success rates in terms of investment and opportunities. Feel free to contact us for how to have more details about the companies who managed to have some successful investments and opportunities afterwards. So apply now, ask for some questions. I'm here to help you. If you're an SMEs, you can apply now. If you're an investors, just contact me and we can already put you on the waiting list for the tickets, and we hope to see you on the 18th of May. And if you are a potential sponsors or partners, also do contact me. We will have some great opportunities for you. Thank you.
Sylvie, that's terrific. Thank you very much indeed. So as Sylvie says, get applying, and you could be on your feet in a couple of months' time in front of a room full of investors. And that first day, the physical event will be taking place in London. Pitching will be online, as Sylvie has mentioned. Right, so last but not least, we have Mark Preston, who's the Chief Exec at PRISMEA, who's going to talk to us about successful collaborations. Mark, over to you.
Thanks, Martin. It's a pleasure to be here today and meet everybody. So my name's Mark. Started PRISMEA. We're a company that helps companies. We're a consultancy company. We help tech companies with their data, essentially. And I'll just talk a little bit, just got the one slide, so hopefully quite quick, about the companies, type of companies we help, and hopefully there'll be some people here that we can help as well. Companies go through an inflection point. We're talking about TRL3, where you may have an MVP, product market fit, hopefully some customers, and you're seeking investment. And we talk about that step to your future needs around scalability, the process that you're going to need more robust processes, security and compliance probably around your data. We're talking around your data and your tech at this point. The drivers and decisions you made to get you to where you are now, where you're seeking your investment and doing your MVP and product market fit, are going to be different to those post-investment. So we help you bridge that gap, step over that gap. Who are we? Myself, my co-founder Andrew. We've got a long experience in industry, academia, and for government. So we come from a compliance background. Andrew spent 13 years doing clinical trials software. I worked for the regulator, the MHRA, for 5 years, as well as over in the States at Disney and lots of different hospitality companies and biotech startups in and around Cambridge. We're cloud experts. We've done this before. We've built products on the cloud. We've migrated lots of companies from Excel spreadsheets and computers underneath desks to proper cloud infrastructure to help their growth. And our real expertise lies in the data analytics. We probably work maybe 80% with biodata, which is some of the largest, the most diverse, most heterogeneous, and probably the most noisy data you can get out there. Makes it the most complex, consequently makes it also the most fun to work with. We work with any data analytics, from human data to GDPR privacy data through to machine output data, time series data. And what we do is we help, and we've helped lots of companies, say predominantly in the biotech, but expanding our horizons, take that step from being a small company into a large company, being 4 or 5 people up to 50 to 100 people is who we normally help. We work with you, we understand where you are, who your people are, what your processes are, where you're going, that gap analysis from what you're doing. That can be business goals, or it can be certification, ISO certification, those sorts of things as well. We work with you to plan for that migration, how that works, what quick wins we can get for you, move your business on and keep your acceleration. And then we can help you execute that. That's part of what we do in front. Part of the real fun around what we do is executing. But we also like to help you hire. What we're talking about here, sort of 6 months to 2 year projects. You're going to need people to come in. Some of the people we talk around in the data, especially a good data scientist, especially a head of data, is going to take you 3 to 6 months to hire. 3 months worth of notice period. That's 9 months of delay in your company, and that's probably not something that you're looking for, going to be happy with. So we can help you do that. We can help you hire the right people. We can help them onboard them and make sure they're on board quickly. We're not precious about what we do. We teach and learn as we go along with everybody. And one thing we do as well is we help communicate with investors. So you've got a plan to grow. You're going to probably need money to do that, and you're at that point where you're looking for investors. We're happy to communicate with them, help you communicate with them what the business plans are, what their money might be spent on in terms of the data and the growth and the cloud infrastructure. So we're happy to give that weight and that sort of help of risk mitigation around what you're doing and how you're growing. that's it. Yeah, that's all I really wanted to say. And hopefully there's a few people who might be interested in sort of talking to us about this sort of stuff, and we can help you on that step, take that step, prepare for that next step, and take that next step. If you want to get in contact, speak to me, find me on LinkedIn, drop me an email. We've got lots of experience in lots of different areas, and we're also living the dream. We're also developing our own product. How could we not be? Walk the walk and talk the talk.
Okay, Mark, thank you very much indeed. I think your experience in the life sciences sector is perfectly transferable in terms of data management into clean tech as clean tech grows and prospers.
Yeah.
As you saw with the first presentation from Helen. Terrific. Look forward to some of the companies working with you. I'm very pleased to see you have a very tidy office there. Everything looks very well data managed in your background. I'm sure you do that on purpose.
Yes.
Right.
Can't see below the line.
Okay, over to Oriane, who's going to